بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. So continue from where we left off last time. Just want to correct one thing, and actually I forgot one or two points that are important to mention. That is, I made a mistake with يوم الشك. يوم الشك عند الحنابلة is the day when clear skies on the night after day 20. When there is a barrier in the sky, clouds or something, that is not Yawm al-Shak. That is the day you have to fast. In the Jumhur, according to the other schools, Yawm al-Shak is the day when there's clouds in the sky. According to if there's clear skies, then it's not Yawm al-Shak, because there's no doubt whether the month is open or not. Yawm al-Shak is the day when it's clear skies. That's number one. And number two, we mentioned a few masail connected to اتحاد المطالع, اختلاف المطالع. اتحاد المطالع, we said, is the madhab of the Hanabila, the madhab of the Jumhur, according to the relied upon opinion of their madhab. But the practice today in most countries is on the madhab of the Shafi'i, and it's actually secondary opinion to some of the other madhab, and that is اختلاف المطالع. That means that every country, every horizon has its own sighting. The fuqaha in the past, they'd say once the moon is sighted in any country, then everyone who we said two things, that hear about the moon sighting and they deem it a valid sighting. They deem it a valid sighting. As in, for example, let's say in a different country, they're on the madhab of the Hanabila. They say one witness. Another country do not deem the madhab of the Hanabila one witness, so they reject the sighting in another country. So in that country, they won't follow the moon of the other country. They follow the moon of their own country. In saying that, interestingly, there's a couple of stories. There's Hijji is one of them. He mentions on some of the qudat. They would mention in Hijji, he says, ala tarikh al-kathir. He mentions that sometimes, at some years, you'd find some of them writing that Ramadan came in on this year on the opinion of the Hanbali. On the opinion of the Hanbali. So one witness or one person came to say they sighted the moon. Another thing interesting is one of the qudat, I think it's Ibn Sukkari. Ibn Sukkari, when he became the qadi in one of the countries, he told every qadi of every madhab that none of them should pass a fatwa on the mufradat of their madhab. The mufradat is a ruling that only is found in that madhab. So he would say that the Hanbali qadi, the judge, should not allow Ramadan to enter based on one witness. And he would also say no one should give the fatwa of ilzam az-zawj bil-khul. Khul is when husband and wife have an issue, and the wife, basically the husband doesn't give talaq, but the wife wants out, so she pays a bit or all or more than the mahr. And in that case, the husband will divorce her, but it will be khul. Somebody it's with the word khul, he won't count as a talaq. So he said that the qadi cannot force a husband to take khul. But the amal today in many countries that are like in Saudi, they say that this opinion goes, and they say it protects the right of the husband as well, because they don't just force him with talaq, but he also gets something back because of khul. Then مسألة of اتحاد اختلاف المطالع. There's a question whether اختلاف المطالع, the different horizons, apply to Eid al-Adha as well. The reason for that is because of Arafah. So some people, let's say people in this case, say that because everyone is on Arafah on a specific day, should the entire world be fasting on that day, because Arafah is a specific day, is a specific time, a specific place in Mecca. So generally the fuqaha in the past, they would not mention the mas'ala, they would not mention that the horizons, the rule changes here. They keep it the same. So if they deemed one moon is sighted for every month, they include Hajj moon. And if they deem that every horizon has their own sighting, then in Hajj as well, they say that every country has their own sighting. In fact, Ibn Abidin, who's a Hanafi, he touches on this mas'ala from Qudama. He specifies, and he said that maybe ikhtilaf al-matali' could apply for the Hajj, for the Eid of Adha. So he says there, in that case, every country can have their own sighting, which is kind of opposite of what people say today. They say that since Hajj and Arafah is on one place in Mecca, everyone should be fasting on that day. So then there's difference of opinion between our ulama, contemporary scholars. So they differ whether for Arafah and for Eid al-Adha, for Dhul Hijjah, there should be one moon sighting for the entire world. And before we carry on with this, when Fuqaha in the past they said one moon sighting, they would say the moon sighting anywhere in the world, not only Mecca or Saudi Arabia or something like that, which is different today. When people say they want to follow one moon, they only follow the sighting of Saudi, which is not what Fuqaha meant in reality. So, but in this case, following the moon of Saudi, some ulama said that for Hajj, for Hajj, for the Hajj sighting, they should follow Mecca. This is the opinion of Lajna Da'ima in Saudi and also the opinion of the Darul Ifta in Egypt. They also say that they should follow the moon sighting in Mecca and everyone should have Arafah. Arafah should be deemed Arafah the day all the Hujjaj are standing Arafah, which means the day after will be Eid all over the world. And the second opinion is the opinion of many of the major scholars, including Shaykh Ibn Uthaymin. And I would assume it's also from the subcontinent. Most scholars they would deem it that instilled in the Hajj Eid, every country would have their own sighting. And the reason for the difference of opinion from these fuqaha is the question whether Arafah is a name to indicate a place or is it to indicate a time? Is Arafah a name to indicate the place? As in, when people are standing on that buq'ah, that piece of land called Arafah, that is the day of Arafah and everyone should be fasting on that day. Or is it named for the 9th of Dhul Hijjah? That would mean that anywhere in the world where the date is the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, whether it's before or when Hujjaj is standing after, then that would be deemed Arafah. And those who have the letter of him saying that it is that Arafah is a name for the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, they say every country has their own sighting. And this they say is one of the reasons that the Fuqaha, when they describe Arafah, they say it's the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. They wouldn't say it's the day that the people stand on Arafah. The first opinion, there are hadith of Abu Dawood in his Marasil, where he says, عرفة اليوم الذي يعرف فيه الناس. عرفة اليوم الذي يعرف فيه الناس. Arafah is the day when people stand there on Arafah. Hadith is collected by Abu Dawood in his Marasil. It's a weak hadith. So, with regards to this, a common question will come up is that the sun and the moon have similar rising points and setting points. So then if the moon is saying every country, all the Muslims should follow one sighting of the moon, then what about the sun? Shouldn't everyone be performing salaah when the sun is reached zawal or sunrise in any country? That's a mas'ala that some of the Fuqaha mentioned from the Hanbali. Qadi Abu Ya'la touches on this mas'ala and he says that it should be like that. It should be like that if everyone united, but because the sun, salah is 5 times a day, watching the sun from anywhere in the world 5 times a day, that's extremely difficult. So for that reason, we don't apply it for the sun. But for Ramadan, it happens once a year, and to do qadha one day is not difficult, in case a person hears of the sighting the next day or 2 days later, etc. So that's what they touch on there. And lastly, with the mas'ala of ittihad, ikhtilaf al-mutali', the mas'ala I thought to mention was, they actually mentioned, some of the Fuqaha mentioned, when beginning Ramadan or ending Ramadan in different countries, actually mentioned the mas'ala of beginning the day of Eid in one country, and you end the day of Eid, or in the middle of the day of Eid, you're in another country. So in the beginning of a day of Eid, you are in a country that's having Eid. Then you travel, and in the afternoon or evening, you travel to a country that they are still in the last day of Ramadan. So do you have to have imsak? Do you have to not eat out of the respect of the month of Ramadan? Because that's what they would mention, and we're going to touch on it tonight. Or can you eat because it's a Eid for you? So the hanbali madhab say in this case is the usual trend of all these masails that in this case you can eat, it's Eid for you. So you do not need to fast, or you don't need to not fast, but to prevent yourself from eating or drinking or anything like that, out of respect for the month of Ramadan, because the country you are in is still in Ramadan. So that's what those things. So now to continue where we left off. The next message that they speak about is that we spoke about seeing the moon with one witness. We spoke about seeing the moon, not seeing the moon, but there was clouds over there in the sky. How should you go about? We said there's times where you fast 31 days, there's times where you fast 32 days. Now in this case, they say if 2 people saw the moon, and after fasting 30 days, you did not see the moon of Shawwal. So when there was one sight, one person sighting the moon, then in this case, we'd say that they must continue fasting. But when two people sight the moon, then in this case, you have to, the next day becomes. So that's one of the differences in the math-hab. And the evidence for that is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam saying, إِذَا شَهِدَ إِثْنَانِ فَصُومُوا وَأَفْطِرُوا, that if two people sight the moon of Ramadan and Shawwal, then you have to break your fast. So how the Hanbali understand that? It's a bit of a technical mas'ala going into lugha on the waw that means mutlaq al-jam'. Then they say the opposite meaning of the mas'ala. It's a bit technical. It's not too tricky, but let's maybe pass on this for time. If after the dars, they want more explanation of this mas'ala, the mafhum of the hadith, how the Hanabila apply, then we can back on it then. Okay, so now a person who sees the moon of Ramadan himself, this person, they say that he saw the moon and he went to the qadhi and the qadhi rejected his testification of seeing the moon. And in this case, they say for this person, he still has to fast. He saw the moon alone, his testification. We're saying testification, but we did say when he goes to the Islamic judge, he doesn't need to use the words, I bear witness, I've seen the moon, as he has to do for other months. So Ramadan, they are a bit easier because of the ahadith on this. So, but we're just using it just because it makes it easier to explain. So there, this person who sees the moon alone, but his testification was rejected, he has to fast. Because they say he, in his head, he believes it's Ramadan because he thinks he saw the moon. That's one his case. But then they speak on the mas'ala of seeing the moon alone for Shawwal. When one person sees the moon alone for Shawwal, then they say in this case he's not allowed to have iftaar. He has to have the next day of Ramadan with the people. They say because of the hadith that I just quoted. Now, when two people see the moon for Shawwal, then this was one person. They also say perhaps he made a mistake. And for one person seeing the moon and then we accept his shahada, they say he has no, to start the month of Ramadan, he have no ulterior motive. So he has to be honest. But for Shawwal, he could have something in his mind to maybe stop Ramadan or stop the ibadah, he doesn't want to anything of that nature. They call it tuhma. So they say, there's tuhma. For coming of Ramadan, there's no tuhma. And then another mas'ala they mention is that if two people see the moon for Shawwal, if two people see the moon of Shawwal, then in this case they go to the qadhi and they give testification. And this time two people, they must give testification. And now in this case, similar to what we mentioned when one person goes to the qadhi. If these two people, here's the few situations, three or four situations, okay? These two people go to the qadhi. They reach the qadhi does not take the shahada, does not take their witness. Why? Either because he doesn't know whether they are honest, trustworthy, adil people, or he rejects the shahada because of fisk, because he knows they are not trustworthy. So in the second case, it's not allowed for anyone to fast. And in the first case, right, that's number one, right? Let's say the first case. And then, or they did not reach a qadhi. Maybe there's no Islamic court in the country, or the town, or the village, or the city, or they just couldn't make it. Then in that case, there's three situations. So these three situations and the previous one from the other two, they take the same rule. So in this case, these two people know each other to be trustworthy. They know each other, then for these two, they can have it. They can have Eid. And if anyone else who knows these two to be trustworthy, all of them can have Eid the next day, following on what these two people inform. Number three, so these two take the rule, and then the same thing for anyone who knows they are trustworthy, but they know these people were not rejected by the party because of their fisk, because of the untrustworthiness, they can fast. But if these two do not know of each other's trustworthiness, none of them can have it. And if anyone else doesn't know of the trustworthiness or deems them untrustworthy, they can't have it. Okay? So when we say they have Eid, does that mean they should just differ with all the people in the country or something like that? No, because one of the objectives of Sharia is for people to come together in unity. It's not there that 50 people are having Eid one day and 100 on the next day and things like that. That's not the objective of the Sharia. And the thing is, Eid Salah, qadha can be made of Eid Salah. So if they believe it's Eid, they don't fast the next day, they can eat. but they shouldn't go out and perform Eid Salah. They should wait for the day after with the people, and they all perform Eid Salah. Sometimes in certain countries, or the question would arise, some people are following Saudi Moonsighting, some people are following local Moonsighting. What should we do? The starting point is that you follow the fatwa in your country, the ulama of your country, or the ulama that you follow in your country. What is their fatwa? Their fatwa is everyone has a different sighting, you follow them. And in the case where they have both opinions, then you follow, let's say, either the people in your community are doing it, the local mosque that you're going to go to for Eid. Sometimes it's so big that you have an option. You have it tomorrow Eid or the day after. And in that case, in order to keep the objective of the Sharia of people not causing fitna, people not differentiating, causing disunity in the people, then you can maybe have it with the day your family. All of that is bad. All of it is bad. So that is the mas'ala. The one person who he is alone and he thinks he saw the moon of Eid, and his testimony is valid. It won't even be a testimony because of what we mentioned. But he's the only one person. One person would count for Eid, and that is a person who, as we said, let's say, prisoner or person on the ground. He has no access to other Muslims to be able to know whether the moon has been sighted, whether more have sighted the moon, whether they have not sighted the moon. He's alone. In this case, and he thinks he saw the moon. He thinks what he saw was the moon. Then in this case, he can have Eid. So in this case, it would count for him. Then the next mas'ala, the fuqaha speak about, okay, we speak of one person. The other thing of where one person would count, that is to informing if one person came and said the sun is set. So now it's for iftar. If one person comes and mentions it, then in this case you will accept his testimony for iftar. You accept him informing you that the sun is set. So iftar can happen. Fuqaha say because for iftar, then you can see outside. Some signs outside to help you determine whether it's close or not. To the extent where you can know it's not a thing that would, most likely he's right, but for sure he'd be right, or he'd be wrong because you can see outside. So if one person who's trustworthy comes and tells you the sun is set, then you can follow it. But we'll discuss in more details about seeing sunset and what parts of the sun, and also the timetables, how accurate are the timetables, things like that. We'll touch on it when we come to the mas'ala of breaking your fast as soon as sunset comes. That hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And some of the fuqaha explained, the hanbali fuqaha, Ibn Hajar touches on it, and Ibn Nujaym, the Hanafi scholar, Ishbah al-Mubair, Qawaid Fiqhiyya, he touches it on as well. We mentioned it. And the next mas'ala they mention is about a person in jail or a person underground. This person who has no access to people or to a watch or to something to tell him the dates or watch for the times of fasting, or other people to tell him whether it's Ramadan or not. This person, how does he go about fasting Ramadan and what intentions he makes? But we're going to skip on this mas'ala because when we come to intention a few pages later, then we're going to connect them together. Some mas'ala connect. So if we don't understand, we might not understand some things on this prisoner because we don't understand the mas'ala of niyyah yet. So we just remind me if I forget about that mas'ala of the prisoner. If anything is unclear, anyone can stop me or ask me to repeat or ask a question while I'm speaking. It's okay, inshallah. But let me finish a mas'ala and you can ask so that my train of thoughts doesn't get cut off. Then the next thing is who fasts for the month of Ramadan. They say that every person who is a Muslim and is mukallaf, means he's already baligh, and he's able to fast. This person, he has to fast the month of Ramadan. So the first thing, he's a Muslim. So that means a non-Muslim, he is fasting, whether he fasts or not fast for Ramadan, it won't help, it won't matter. They say the kafir, the non-Muslim has no intention. He has no intention. So this is an important point to know in fiqh, because when it comes to masail where you need intention, if a non-Muslim does this, it won't count. So if you come to the ghusl of the mayyit, for example, if we go through kitab al-janaiz at some point, the hanbali math-hab say for the ghusl of the mayyit, you need intention. You need intention. So therefore, if a non-Muslim were to do it, it would not count. It would not count. They have one exception, but we won't touch it because then we can go out to the kitab al-janaiz. Okay, so basically that's the point. When you need intention, then a person who's a non-Muslim would not count. Then they say mukallaf. So that means that a person who is young, let's say, they have really small, and then they have mumayyiz. Mumayyiz is a child who can basically understand it. He understands if we take him to the mosque, he can understand this is a place of worship, he shouldn't play. He's old enough to understand it. So some fuqaha give an age for this. They say 6 or 7, and others don't give a specific age, but they just say merely with the child, whether he's 5 or 6 or 8, and he can now grasp things, then this person is called mumayyiz. So we're just going to use the term mumayyiz. We're going to come to another mas'ala after on the mumayyiz. Just use the term mumayyiz, and that's who we're referring to. This child who's 6 or 7, or he's able to discern already. They say so pass is not valid from the Saudi. So under the age of mumayyiz, this person does not pass. His fast does not count. The mumayyiz, in hanbali method, his fast counts. His fast counts. So it's important to know that, because just now we're going to mention a mas'ala of when we speak of a person, let's say he gets bad during the day of Ramadan, then it's important to understand how when we connect it. And then they say a person who is majnoon, is insane. So this person, he is not, you call him غير مكلف. He's majnoon. So sins are not written for this person. رفع القلم عن ثلاث. The pen has been lifted from 3 people, amongst them is the majnoon, the insane person. So if he fasts, it's not valid. But we're going to touch on him when we speak on intention. The majnoon. At times his fast could be valid, and at times invalid. And specifically the majnoon, a person who is unconscious, for example, he takes a different route. So we're going to come to it just now. And then qadir. Qadir means he's able to fast. He's not too old, or he's unable to fast, or he's not sick. He's not sick. He's able to fast. Okay. And then the rule of the ill person fasting, we're going to come to it in good detail just now, inshallah. So we have the qadir. Okay. So now let's understand the mas'ala first. Now we have a mas'ala called تبعيض. Okay. So تبعيض means which are those actions that you can divide it. You can divide it either that they can be divided, that if you can't do some of it, you can still do another thing. I'm going to give an example. And the other thing is, when we say تبعيض, the whole thing takes one rule if you cannot divide. And if you can divide it, some portions will take a specific rules, and the others do not necessarily have to take the rule. So where we give an example of something where if something falls, you can still do the rest. So therefore, if you are performing wudu and you have an injury on this arm, you can't wash it. You can't wash it. So since wudu can't divide, you say wash the other parts, and then you leave this part out. You leave this part out. Then Hanafi method, we leave it out completely. You can't wash completely. In other method, they say you do tayammum. They say you do tayammum. But that's a separate mas'ala in wudu. But the point is, wudu can divide. So since this can drop out, it doesn't mean everything else. But let's say a person cannot perform sajdah on the floor. Should he then take a pillow or something, table, to raise it up so that he can, when he goes down a bit with his head can go on something that's linked to the ground? You'd say no. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he walked into Imraan bin Husayn, who had something raised up for his head to perform sajdah, it was a pillow, he moved it away and he said, oh me. He said, just go down a little bit with your head. You don't need anything. So sajdah, since one thing fell, you couldn't put your head on the ground, everything fell. You didn't need anything else. So Ramadan is a whole. It doesn't take one rule. So every day in Ramadan takes its own rule. Every day in Ramadan takes its own. Every day is separate. So the example of this would be, now when we come later to the mas'ala of a person who had intercourse in the day in Ramadan. So the common mas'ala of kaffarah, this person who had intercourse, we have to give kaffarah. The person in Hajj, for example, let's say he's in ihram, then let's say he cut some of his hair, let's say on this point. Then later on, so he didn't do kaffarah yet, then he cut more, another part of his hair. The next day he cut more of another part of his hair. So he did 3 times. He did the same thing, but 3 times. So, but he didn't give kaffarah any time. So how many kaffarah did he give? 1. But for intercourse in the day of Ramadan, since every day is a day on its own, the person's intercourse on one day, and the next day or days later, not giving kaffarah of the first one, he has intercourse again, he gives 2. Because each day is separate. It's not Ramadan as a whole. So if he's having intercourse on 10 days, since it's a whole thing, and he hasn't given kaffarah, at the end he'll give 1. Not like that in the family. So based on that, the person a kafir. So when we understand that, we understand a few masail connected to qadha. For a person who was not liable yet to fast Ramadan, either because he was a non-Muslim or he was a young child. So he, let's say non-Muslim, accepted Islam on the 5th of Ramadan, during the day, let's say 12 o'clock. This person, he does qadha of what? Of the whole Ramadan, all 4 days that came before? We'd say no. Each day is separate. So those 4 days, they're gone. Those 4 days, they're gone. This day, a day cannot divide. So a day takes the entire, so he accepted Islam 12 o'clock, he has to do qadha of the whole day. A young person who became baligh, this person, since we say mumayyiz, his fast is valid. The mumayyiz became baligh during the day, either because of a wet dream or because 15 years have ended. Let's say he was born year 2000 at 11 p.m. or 11 a.m. So then 15 years later, at 11 a.m., he's now baligh. We didn't see any other sign, no wet dream and no hair growth. The only difference the fuqaha have is that there's hair growth, because they say there's hair growth at the private parts. Pubic hair, it shows he was baligh before the time. So those two that we mentioned before, if he was fasting, that young boy was fasting with an intention at night, his fast would be valid, and there would be no qadha for that day. No qadha that day, because the fast of a mumayyiz is correct. Then they say, وَعَلَى وَلِيِّ صَغِيرٍ مُطِيقٍ أَمْرُهُ بِهِ وَضَرْبُهُ عَلَيْهِ. Then they say a person who's in charge of this young child, who's able, if he's able to fast, then he should fast. If he doesn't fast, the person in charge of him will basically hit him. Okay, so they say mutiq, he must be able to fast. So some fuqaha say if he's just generally, you can see he's able, he's fasted a couple of times, he's able, that's it. And some of the fuqaha in the madhab, they say a hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, إِذَا صَامَ الْغُلَامُ ثَلَاثَةَ أَيَّامٍ مُتَتَابِعَةً فَقَدْ وَجَبَ عَلَيْهِ صِيَامُ رَمَضَانِ. If a young person is able to fast 3 consecutive days without any issues to his health or himself or his energy, then he should now fast for Ramadan. So those are the two opinions when they say being able to fast. And then they say وَضَرْبُهُ عَلَيْهِ. And then they say if he doesn't fast, then he should be hit. The same with salah. So when it comes to hitting, and there's a few masail mentioned when it comes to hitting a child. So firstly, the hitting, the fuqaha say it's a last resort. Secondly, when you hit, there's like 5 or 6 stipulations on the person who is hit. So they say the person who is hitting the child must have authority over the child. He must have authority over the child. Either he's a parent or guardian, or even if the teacher who's kind of has permission to hit the child, then that's the person who can hit the child. Number 2, the child must be deserving of getting hit. Thirdly, the person hitting the child should intend to teach the child, discipline the child, not harm the child. Number 4, the person should not hit the child in front of anyone. So it should be in private. Number 5, they say that أَلَّا يُسْرِفْ فِي الضَّرْبِ. That the person shouldn't hit the child. Should hit a child in the manner where the person considers or would place hits the child, the amount of times he hits the child, and with what he hits the child with. So, even when it comes to the Haidh, a person getting whooped for the law of Allah, and if Allah specified that the whoop must not be too new or too old, he should not lift his hand more than this. And they mention a few things. So for this as well, the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, where he says that no one should be hit more than 10 times other than in the punishment of Allah. Some fuqaha from the Hanafiya, Maliki, and Hanbali say should only be 3 shots. Shafi'i say more if needed. And then where they say as the soft parts of the body, where avoid the face, it's haram to hit the face, but no hurting bones or bruises, etc. So these are a few things they mention of hitting the child. And then they mention a mas'ala that when a person, if he didn't know it's Ramadan, and he gets told during the day it's Ramadan, and in this case a person should stop eating anything, and should basically be as if he's fasting out of respect for the day of Ramadan, for the time of it being Ramadan. Then he has to do qadha. And then they speak of a mas'ala of any person who is mukallaf, but he had a reason for him or her not to fast. So they mentioned like a traveler, or someone who is sick, or someone who is in Haidh or nifaas, or a young child who is not fasting, then he became baligh. These people, if they excuse, which means the traveler is now home, and the lady's Haidh is ended, or nifaas is ended, or the young child is now baligh, or the sick person is now cured. In this case, they say these people should not eat anymore. They should not eat out of respect for the day of Ramadan. And this is the opinion of the Hanbali method and the Hanafi method. The Shafi'i method, Maliki method, and the second opinion, the Hanafi method, they say that if a person had an excuse not to eat in the beginning of the day, and they can still continue eating the rest of the day. They have evidence for this. Ibn Mas'ud radhiAllahu anhu said, "Man akal awwal an-nahar falyakul akhirahu." Whoever eats in the beginning of the day can eat at the end of the day. So these people, what do? They do qadha when they are able to. They do qadha when they are able to. And let's say they were fasting, and then they now travel. Now, hey, these people, they can eat. So it's not the opposite way. It's only the one way. And then when they're allowed to break the fast, how can they break the fast? The ulama mentioned any way that counts to break the fast, they can use. They can eat, they can drink, even if those counts. In the madhab, you realize, we come across that even intention breaks the fast. But if a person breaks the qadha fast, then in this case, there's no need to not eat out of respect for the time, because it's only respect for the month of Ramadan. Then they speak on if a person had to fast, but he did not fast. So a person woke up in the day, he had to fast, he's healthy, he's at home, then so he didn't fast for no reason, and then he traveled. So now the excuse came. Or a lady woke up, she was able to fast, but then Haidh came. So what's the rule for this lady? They say for these people, they're not allowed to eat. They're not allowed to eat. They dealt with, again, the opposite of what they tried to do. Since they did not begin the day as they're supposed to, now when a reason came for them to not fast, it doesn't count. They should still not. Ibn Muflih says for a lady in Haidh, there should be another opinion that's quite strong, that is she can. So that's the second opinion in the madhab. He says for Mustakir, there's more opinions. So that's a weak opinion that Musafir can. And then they speak of a mas'ala of a lady in Haidh, or a lady who's not in Haidh, one of the two. So the lady, she saw blood after Maghrib. She was not in Haidh, she fasted. She saw blood when after Maghrib. She's not sure whether the blood came before Maghrib or after Maghrib. Came before Maghrib, a fast is invalid on that thing. She has to do qadha. If it came after Maghrib, then the fast is valid. So she's not sure. Maybe it came before, maybe it came after. She only checked sometime after Maghrib. So we say in a case like this, for this person, that when something could have occurred in time A or time B, time A meaning in this case before Maghrib, time B after Maghrib, we always put it to the later time. We put it to time B, because that is when it's for sure. There's doubt whether it came before, you didn't see, but now you saw it. So it's always to the later time. So in that case, if this happened, the lady's fast with that. So if a lady, the other way, she is in Haidh, then she woke up in the morning after fajr came in, after the end of suhoor. She sees she's clean. Can she now make the intention to fast? Because maybe she was clean before she woke up during the night, which means her Haidh was over at a time when fasting was not obligatory. Or it was clean now and she had already woken up after the time had come in. In this case, we'd say that it's to the later time, which means she cannot fast. In this day, she has to do qadha. The last mas'ala is a lady who wakes up. Before the time of fajr, and she's in Haidh, but then she gets clean. Either she woke up clean, or before fajr, at some point, she gets clean. So in the Hanbali madhab, the moment she gets clean, after that she can make her intention as long as it's before fajr came in, the end of suhoor, and then she can fast. Hanafi madhab. And the Hanafi madhab, we're going to touch on this mas'ala. There are 4 situations for a lady whose Haidh is ended before fajr. So now there's 4 situations. In the first 3, she's allowed to fast. In the last one, she's not allowed to fast. So the first one is when a lady does not, her Haidh goes to the maximum Haidh, goes 10 days. So either it's her natural trend to go 10 days, or in this case, her Haidh is just not ending, it continues. So now if in this case, her Haidh would be 10 days, whether her 10 days, because in Haidh, you look at the hour. look at the hours. If her Haidh started, let's say 2:13 p.m., the next day at 2:13 p.m. will be 1 day. So in this case, let's say Fajr comes at 5 o'clock. So if her Haidh is going to end 4:55, they basically speak on the mas'ala of the lady having enough time to perform the ghusl, to perform a fard ghusl. That's the mas'ala, because to become clean, officially clean. So they say, so what when we say the ghusl, a lady maybe she takes half an hour for her ghusl after her Haidh. But it doesn't matter. What counts is the amount of time she takes for her fard ghusl. So maybe she takes half an hour in the shower, but the fard things only take 5 to 10 minutes, let's say, for her to completely wash herself. So let's say a lady needs 10 minutes. Let's work with this example. She needs 10 minutes for her ghusl. So that means if Fajr comes at 5 o'clock, we look at 4:50 is the last moment, 4:49 is the last moment where she can go in the shower to take the ghusl. So must she take the ghusl or not? And what about the timing? So here, if her Haidh is 10 days, then whether she gets clean, whether 10 days ends with enough time to do the ghusl or not, she can fast. So scenario 1 and 2. Number 1 is where she gets clean with enough time to do the ghusl. So before 4:50, she's clean. With enough time. The 10 minutes she can fast. Without the ghusl, she doesn't need to do the ghusl. She can make the intention and fast. Number 2, Haidh is again 10 days. The cleanliness comes with less than enough time for her ghusl. So between 4:50 or 4:51 and 4:59. In this case, she can still fast. The Haidh ends 4:54, she can make the intention. Number 3, she has a set cycle. It ends before Fajr, but here it has to end with enough time for her to take the bath. So it has to end before, let's say, 4:50, 4:40. In this case, she can fast. The last situation is where, so in all those above 3, she doesn't have to do those as long as it's just enough time. Because the intention counts, then after when she gets time before praying Fajr, she can do those. Even if it doesn't half an hour after the time doesn't matter. The last situation is where her Haidh, she has a cycle and it ends, not the 10 days, but it ends before Fajr. There's not enough time for her to do those. So it ends 4:52 around day 4:51, 4. In this case, she cannot fast unless she goes and does the ghusl and ends before time. So in this case, she has to do the ghusl. If she ends before 5, she can make the intention and fast. So the ghusl must end before time. That means we made our intention until zawal. So the intention can be later, but the ghusl has to end. The ghusl has to end. So those are the 4 situations in the Hanafi math-hab. And then they speak, and the hanbali math-hab is that if a musafir knows he's coming tomorrow, then he should fast. The other madahib do not say it. And then they speak on a person who's old or he's ill. He's too ill to fast. So he's either too old to fast or too ill to fast. And this person gives kaffarah. He doesn't need to fast. He has to give kaffarah for every day he cannot fast. For every day he cannot fast. And how much the kaffarah in the Hanbali madhab is for everything is half a sa'. We'll discuss a sa' just now. Half a sa' of either wheat or barley or these things that they mentioned in the madhab. So you could give rice, you could give what people of the country eat. That would count better according to the fatwa of many ulama. If people of the country eat a specific, let's say they eat maize or they eat rice or they eat dates, barley, wheat, etc., you can give these things. How much? For kaffarah, not zakaatul fitr, kaffarah, half a sa'. The question would be how much is a sa'? But before that, we mentioned he has to feed for every day. One person for every day. So if he hasn't fasted for 20 days for the whole month, doesn't mean he has to fast, he has to feed 30 people. Rather, he has to feed one person, he has to feed for every day. Whether he gives it to 1 or 2 or 10, people do not matter in this case. In this case, what matters is feeding. Feeding the poor person. Which poor person? The person who is eligible for zakah. That's the general trend for fidyah, for kaffarah. The person is eligible for zakah, then you can give him your kaffarah. And whether it's 1 or 2 or 3, in this case, it doesn't matter as long as it's for every day, half a sa'. So when can you give? Let's say the month of Ramadan comes in and you can't fast because the person is old or the person is ill. You can't fast. And in this case, we'd say you can give. Do you have to give at the end of Ramadan? You have to give after every day of fasting. We say that the kaffarah, it has one reason. You cannot give the kaffarah before that reason. So, for example, let's say you want to break an oath, but you haven't made the oath yet. You can't give a kaffarah for the oath that you haven't even made. So, because it has one thing, one reason, that is the oath, breaking the oath. So one reason. For here, this person, he has to first not fast, right? Ramadan is to come, he's not able to fast. So that's one thing, is the iftaar, a day passes. Number two is the person is old or ill. So there's two things. So if he's already old, already ill, one of the two reasons are there, you can give the kaffarah before the other reasons. You can give the kaffarah before the other reasons. So once Ramadan is entered, you can give for all 30 days or 20 days, or after the first day, or at the end. You can do it any way that you want. So how much is a sar? So the sar, the ulama give different weights for a sar. Some ulama say it's 2.04 a sar. It's a complete sar. So for the kaffarah, I give half. Some say 2.04 kg. Others say just under 2.2 kg. Others say just under 2.8 kg. And then from the subcontinent, the ulama, some of them, they give higher. They give one, some of them say a sar is 3.75 kg. And others say 4.64 kg is a sar. So you just divide those into half to get half a sar. So Mawlana Ashraf Ali Al-Tanwi, rahmatullahi alayhi, he says if you can follow any reputable alim, gives a weight. Another mufti from the subcontinent, he said that out of safety, you should follow the highest. You should follow the highest amount that they've given of the amount for safety. Another way we can look at it is that a sar, it basically it's volume. So 3 liters will equal 1 sar. So 3 liters will equal 1 sar. So for the kaffarah, you can take a bottle that's 1.5 liters, fill it with whatever you want to feed. Then you can give that. You can give that as a kaffarah. How do you give the kaffarah? You can give it cooked or you can give it uncooked. Sometimes it's preferable to give it uncooked just out of the safety for a difference of opinion. Some Shafi'i scholars say it has to be uncooked. The Sahaba used to cook the kaffarah and give it. So you can do it like that. The main thing is that you don't cook food and then invite people. So you need to feed 30 people. For 30 days, you invite 34 people, and then they take food from your pot. That is not permissible because that's called ibah. It's called ibah. Ibah means you just make it permissible to take, but you have to make them the owners of the food. So here they will not be owners. They can only become owners when they put it in the dish or in the plate. That's another mas'ala mentioned there. Okay. And then if a person is old or a person is sick, and general excuse which allows a person not to fast, like they travel or like they are in Haidh, female, then in this case, they don't give kaffarah either. There's no kaffarah, no fidyah, no qadha. There's nothing for this person. Then when it comes to the sick person, they say that it's sunnah وسنة الفطر لمريض يضر السنة ولمسافر يقصر ولو بلا مشقة. We'll start with the second part. A person who's a traveler, the relied on position is that it's sunnah for the traveler to not fast. Whether it's difficult or not, or there's difficulty for him in traveling or not, sunnah for him not to fast. Sunnah for him not to fast. The second opinion in the Hanbali madhab, which is the opinion of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, is that it is permissible for him to fast or not fast. So it's not better for him not to fast, like in the relied upon position of the madhab. It's not better for him to not fast. To fast or to not fast, they equal. But he says certain times. So he says if a person has no change in himself and his personality because of fasting while he's traveling, he's still as easygoing as he is. There's no difficulty on him. Then in this case, it's equal for him to fast or not fast. But if it's any change, any difficulty for him, then sunnah for him to not fast. In fact, he includes a mas'ala as well, where he says that if somebody believes it's from piety to fast while traveling, or it decreases the person's level of religiousness if he does not fast. He does not fast in traveling. In this case, it will be sunnah for him to not fast. Based on a number of hadith. One of them is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam saying, "Laysa min al-birri as-siyamu fi as-safar." It's not from piety to fast during travel. All some of the Sahaba who did not break the fast when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam break the fast when traveling, and it was difficult on them. He said, "Ula'ika lahu as-sah." These people have disobeyed. These people have disobeyed. So that's for that person. And the next person is, so that's the mas'ala of the traveler. And then the next person who can break the fast is the sick person. Sick person, the Hanbali madhab says that say 2 situations where it's better for a sick person to not fast. That is when the sickness would prolong through fasting, or it would prolong, or it would become worse. It would prolong, become worse. then in this case, it's sunnah not to fast. And they say if fasting is really difficult, and it doesn't prolong or increase the sickness, then in this case, it's better not to fast. It's not mustahab or sunnah to not fast, but it's just better not to fast. But they would allow, they would say it's not going to be makruh to fast in this case. And they include in this, they say a young girl who gets her Haidh back, it's coming, now she has to fast and it's difficult on her, she cannot fast and do qadha, and she gets used to fasting, and she can do the qadha when she gets used to it. Another person they include as being, or this person is somebody who would find severe difficulty in fasting. This person would find severe difficulty in fasting. For example, he fasts and the fast just knocks him out. He can't do anything. He can't do much. He's just knocked out the whole day. Or he gets severe thirst from fasting in summer. And this person takes the ruling of a sick person, and then those same rules apply. Whether he gets sick or won't get sick, or he really become weaker, or things like that, then it's sunnah not to fast. If there's severe difficulty, it would be better for him to not fast. But also a person who is healthy but fears from fasting, he'd be sick. This person also is better for him not to fast. Then, so who determines whether a person is able to fast or not? Either they say a person himself. A person himself knows from his own personality, from his own, either he knows himself or he knows from his experience that if he fasts when he's in this situation or in this predicament, then he's not going to get sick, or he'll get more sick, he'll get sicker, or his sickness will prolong. In this case, he knows from himself, and that will count. Or they say a doctor, they say a Muslim doctor, they say one counts, just like how we said earlier, for the last time, for how many people you need for the shahada. We said one for the moon of Ramadan because it's from informing, bearing witness. From here, they say it's one doctor needed. It's apart from informing. So whether it's male or female doesn't matter. You need one person only. So they say the person must be a doctor. Must be a doctor. Number two, he must be or she must be reliable. Number three, he or she must be a Muslim. He or she must be a Muslim. So the message, does it have to be a Muslim doctor? Because when it comes to these messages, they say it must be a Muslim. But the person gets a doctor's advice to sit and read salah, or lie down and read salah, or not fast. They say it must be a Muslim. But what about a non-Muslim? So the second opinion, the hanbali math-hab, which is even Jamir's position, the Maliki math-hab, and some of the Shafi'i scholars say even if he's a non-Muslim who's trustworthy non-Muslim doctor, then that will count as well. So if a person cannot get hold of a Muslim doctor, or his doctor is not a Muslim doctor, or it's costly to go to a Muslim doctor, the non-Muslim doctor is trustworthy, realizes the importance of fasting in Islam. This non-Muslim doctor says you can't fast, then it would count. And what he said would count. Okay. So another mas'ala they speak about is fasting out of the treatment. They say not fasting is a treatment. So what does that mean? That means that you need to take treatment. Okay, so they would give examples in the fuqaha. They say sometimes you put something in your eye, or something of treatment for your eye. So you're able to fast, everything's there. But just bit of treatment for your eye, to fix your eye, you don't fast. So can you not fast because of taking treatment while you're completely able to fast? Fuqaha say you can do that. Fuqaha say you can do that as a treatment. The why they mention this mas'ala, the same thing they say if a person is able to stand and read salah, but a doctor tells him to sit and read salah because of treatment. Let's say they usually use eye drops, putting something in the eye to cure the eye. So because of that, they would say to the person, the patient, you should read salah sitting down. Can he do that? And the answer would be yes. But why do I mention this mas'ala? Because the fuqaha in the past mentioned the ruling of taking medication. The scholars today have researched the mas'ala and they've concluded a separate concept, but the fuqaha in the past they would differ on their rule they give to take treatment. So some of them would say it's makruh to take medication. Some would say it's better not to take medication. Some would say it's permissible to take medication. So for something that's only permissible or even makruh, can you then leave either fasting or either standing in salah? So the answer would be yes. And then the next mas'ala they mention is can a person travel in order not to fast? So they say that is not permissible. And then they mention the mas'ala like a person is fasting, he's at home, and when he travels, can he break his fast once he leaves? They say means when does the person start counting his distance for travel? Usually to make it easy, we say boundaries of a town. But in reality, the fuqaha in the past, they'd say the last houses where people are living. From there, when you're in that houses where people live, there's factories and buildings and shops are coming after that. It's part of the city, or the open land, it's part of the town or city. They would say it would count you already as a traveler. So what the state would say in the past is the last place is the house where people live, the actual houses where people live. So once you've gone there, past there, or you've gone out of the boundaries of the town, then can you break your fast? So in this case, the Hanbali madhab will say you can. The other schools say you can't. They say the only time when traveling allows you not to fast is if you've begun the day fasting. Sorry, if you've begun the day traveling, in that case you do not have to fast. In this case where you are fasting already, can you break the fast when you leave your city or town? Hanbali madhab says yes, but they say it's better not to. Why? Out of just difference of opinion in the masala. And then they speak of a masala of person, of a lady who's either pregnancy or is breastfeeding. Say pregnancy, any time during pregnancy and breastfeeding. They don't mention of a lady in nifaas. So a lady is in nifaas who's not actually in nifaas, because nifaas is after the baby is born, but you take the ruling of a lady in nifaas. So they say, when is a lady taking the ruling of nifaas? They say if it's time for labor, it's the time for her to give birth. It's actually that time. And then she has signs of labor, like they say talq, which is labor pains. Then she sees blood within 2 or 3 days before labor. So that is a lady who takes the ruling of the lady in fast. Therefore, in Hanbali madhab, this is the case for this lady. She does not pray salah, she does not fast. So a lady who's pregnant or breastfeeding, they say it goes into 2 situations. Either she doesn't want to fast, fear of herself. Either she's worried on herself, she'll be weak and she'll not feel well, or she'll get ill on herself. Or she fears for herself, and the child. So either herself and the child. Fears for herself and also for the child. In that case, this lady does not fast and she does qadha. She does qadha when she's able to after breastfeeding. The last case is when she does not fear. She is able to fast. She knows she's able to fast everything, but she fears if she fasts for some reason, it will affect the child, maybe production, whatever it may be. She fears not for herself, but for the child. In this case, she doesn't need to fast. She does qadha when she can. But in this case, the person responsible for the child financially, which is usually the father, then the father would have to feed the same way the kaffarah that we mentioned, or for every day that the mother did not fast. Every day the mother did not fast. Okay. And then for this, as we said earlier, any amount of poor people would go. And then they speak, which we might end on these masail, that is a person who intends to fast, and then he faints, or he becomes insane. And what is the case of this person's fast? So intending to fast, meaning before fajr time comes in, he had the intention to fast. And then what happened was, let's say number one, he became insane. So they say insane, whether it's complete insanity or any person from time to time he becomes insane. They say this person did not become sane for even a second during the fasting hours. His fast would not be valid. Okay? And if a person who faints, he also did not wake up for 1 second. He lost his consciousness. Whether he faints, whether he's in ICU, whatever it may be, he lost his consciousness. He's not insane, but he lost his consciousness. If he doesn't wake up for 1 second during the day, his fasting not valid. Which means either of those two, if they woke up for 1 second in the day, their fast would be valid because they made the intention. With no intention, no fast, even if they woke up for more. Okay. And they also speak, okay, so we touched on that. Then if this happens in a qadha, they lose their mind and they don't wake up, then they have to do qadha again. Nothing. Okay, then the next thing is a person with epilepsy, or a person who's ICU, as we said, or a person who's under anesthetic. It takes the ruling of a person who loses his consciousness in the day, not insane, which means we're going to touch on the difference now. The difference is the person who is insane. Person who is insane, he does not have to do qadha because he has no taklif. We said he must be mukallaf. So this person, for the time of fasting from fajr when he came in until maghrib, he was insane. He does not do qadha. But a person who is unconscious, is in ICU, or is fainted, or epilepsy, these people take the ruling of that they have to do qadha. They have to do qadha. qadha of the fast that they did not wake up for one second, or if they woke up but did not make the intention. The reason for that, fuqaha say a person who is insane, he basically loses his aql goes, and as a result of losing the aql, all his other senses go. But a person who is unconscious, this person loses his senses. As a result of everything else, then he loses the aql. So the aql is secondary. They also say the person who loses his consciousness, generally, it's a sickness. They say it covers the person's aql. He cannot think and things like that. Number 3, they say generally it does not prolong. It does not prolong. And hence they say that it can happen to the Anbiya. A prophet of Allah can become unconscious. But they do not say that the prophet of Allah can become insane. So if a person sleeps throughout the day in Ramadan, but he made intention at night and he sleeps throughout the day, then this person's fast would be valid. This person's fast would be valid. Let's say it does not cause a person to lose his senses in totality. He can just be woken up and he wake up and wake up. So this person, if he made the intention and he slept, his fast would be valid. This would not be the same with the person who's insane or lost consciousness. So the last mas'ala, couple of minutes left, and that is a person who can touch on it because it's an interesting mas'ala. If a person is fasting, but he needs to save somebody else's life, he needs to save somebody else's life. Okay, so they touch on this mas'ala, connecting it to a lady who is pregnant or breastfeeding because of the baby. So the lady is either not going to fast for herself, but mainly because of the baby. So it's somebody else's life. So they say, do you have to save somebody else's life if you are capable of doing so? So here there's 2 opinions in the matter. A number of fuqaha say the relied upon position is that if you are able to save somebody who's going to die, you have to save the person. And then if you don't save the person, you have to pay blood money. So there's 2 opinions again. Some fuqaha say you have to. Others, like Ibn Qudamah and others, say you do not have to. You do not have to pay blood money. And then they say if a person saves somebody else, they usually give the example of drowning because they can then give the example. It fits perfectly because maybe when they jumped in the water went into the mouth and they swallowed water by mistake in order to save the person. So what's the rule on this fasting person's fasting? So before we touch on that, we say a person was able to save the person and his fast is still intact, but after saving the person he became weak, he's not able to fast. So can he break his fast? So they say yes. And they say yes, and there's no kaffarah or anything. They say it's like a person who just got sick. And if a person needed to save somebody else, but he needed to break his fast in order to save the other person. The person needed to break his fast in order to save the other person, and can he break his fast? So they say just like how a lady can break her fast, cannot fast because of her child, either living child or still in the womb, and this person also should perform iftaar. He should break his fast and then save the person. And then they also, because we said the lady breaks her fast if she's caring for the child only, then the person who's responsible financially for the child should give kaffarah. So they say, does this person have to give kaffarah? So they say yes, he has to give kaffarah. But he gives the kaffarah, but then the person he saved, he goes to ask him for the money this guy spent, give the kaffarah. So these are some of the most important masail that we touched on regarding these people who should be fasting the day of Ramadan. Anyway, and there, ask Allah Azza wa Jal to benefit us with what He's taught us and to teach us what benefits us. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Questions?
Two questions I have. The first one is you said the hadith about the sujood when somebody is not able to do sujood on the ground. What was the ruling? I missed that part. Yeah, yani, he has to make sujood on a table, or even if he just bow down, intending like he has done the sajdah, is it okay, or he has to put his hand on the table? What's the rule?
Yeah, if a person is not able to do sajdah and he puts a pillow or a table there that he can help his head to go touch on it when he does sajdah, that is makruh. That is makruh. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam entered when Imraan bin Husayn radhiAllahu anhu put a pillow there to perform sajdah on it, he moved it away. He said, just go down a little bit with your head. And the fuqaha say, perform sajdah, you have to remove your back and your neck. So the least amount to move your back and your neck for ruku' is to the extent where if you're sitting on the floor, a chair, your forehead is above, just a little bit above your knees. So your knees end here, your head must come there. Your head must come there. That's the minimum of ruku' if a person is capable of reaching it. Then for sajdah, it's more than, so he has to bow down more than the minimum. And if he's unable, then for ruku' he bows down until where is possible, but not full where is possible, and then sajdah more. Sajdah more. So that's with the back and the neck. If you can't do both, then he just moves the neck. He just moves the neck. Allahu Akbar.